This one featured Scully and Hitchcock.
Oh yeah. So they did a new one. That's hilarious.
Yes.
Oh man. And we should really do an episode about Brooklyn Nine-Nine when it comes back next year. But that's not what we're going to talk about today, because welcome to Geeks with Kids, your bi-weekly geeky podcast from a parenting point of view. I'm one of your hosts, Eric. And joining me this week is Mike. Wait, I guess I have to do last names because you guys are both Mikes. That's confusing.
Yeah, we are.
So hi, Shows.
Hey.
And Hawk. Hey.
Hey.
How's it going, guys?
Not bad. How about you?
I'm tired, but that's okay because maybe I'll be going to the, what is that, Cinedome or whatever?
Cinesphere.
Cinesphere. Oh, yes. The Cinesphere in Toronto, because The Dark Knight is back in theaters really for just a week or something like that, because it's celebrating its 10th anniversary. So we thought, why not celebrate that 10th year anniversary by talking about the film? And I know for myself, I'm a really big fan of the film. I like most of the internet, and a lot of the critics call it probably one of the crowning achievements in comic book films, if not the best comic book film of all time. I know some people would disagree, maybe some people on this podcast itself, which is strange because, Steve's not here to talk about it. So, but yeah, so, and it was like one of the first films to get Oscar nominated, at least for a comic book film. Why don't we start way back 10 years ago? The film was released on July 18th, 2008. Do you guys remember seeing the film back then? I assume everyone saw the film because I definitely saw it 3 or 4 times.
Absolutely.
Why don't we start with Hawk? Tell us about your first time seeing it and then your reaction to it.
Well, 2008 was a great year because, I was still buzzing off of seeing Iron Man back in May. Dark Knight was always on my radar on that because I was a huge fan of Batman Begins. Seeing that in the cinema and it still doesn't get enough credit for what it did for the genre as a whole. But as far as Dark Knight, twice in the theater, loved it both times. I was a little surprised. Second time I saw it, I was with my sister in that. It's not normally a big, superhero comic book or even an action film kind of movie viewer in that, and I was surprised by some of her reactions in that to the Joker scenes, in particular the gaff she let out during the pencil scene.
Amazing.
Yeah,
the magic trick. Yeah. And she liked the film.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
Oh yeah, enough to see it again. Yeah, when we got it on Blu-ray in December.
Amazing. What about you, Shows? Do you remember seeing it?
Yeah, and so I'm sort of that dissenting voice in this podcast. I actually saw it for the first time on Blu-ray. I never saw it in the theater.
Boo.
And the reason I didn't see it in the theater is I didn't care for Batman Begins, and I think it's because I was looking for something different in my superhero movies. And I had just seen I enjoyed Iron Man quite a bit. And I was really into the Spider-Man films as well. The ones that was it Sony that put those out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the ones with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. I like my superhero movies to be popcorn films. I wanted them to make me smile. I wanted them to just be very flashy and I mean, I feel I'm a different viewer now than I was then. But Batman Begins, I found it at the time. I found it boring. I was like, this isn't what I wanted to see in a Batman movie. And so I wasn't super excited.
You wanted neon lights and hockey skates and puns?
Yeah. That's right. Holy rusted metal, Batman.
You wanted penguins with bombs strapped to them, making their way towards Gotham during Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was all about those films, and I know that they progressively got worse and worse. And I mean, now I can tell how bad they really were.
Only
but,
now,
watching those movies, with Schwarzenegger and Jim Carrey and all those different characters, this seemingly making the Batman films more neon and more over the top, put me in a certain place. And so Batman Begins, I think maybe was kind of a reset. And when I saw that, I was like, I don't know if that's going to be the kind of film for me. And so when Dark Knight came out, I just didn't go to see it in the theater. But I saw it on Blu-ray, and I remember it made me quite uncomfortable. And I mean, since and I just watched it again last night, but since watching it now, I think that was a good thing, that it made me uncomfortable. But I feel like watching it then, it sort of made me feel like this isn't why I'm here to see a movie. I don't want the Joker to make me feel this nervous, to make me feel this scared.
Why not?
But yeah, it was Blu-ray.
So was your uncomfortableness purely by the actions of the Joker and what he did?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so basically him trying to, his whole anarchistic attitude to life, and then how he could destroy the city by corrupting one of its shining white knights.
I wasn't used to seeing a villain that unchained. You know what I mean? Like I always felt like villains in movies still sort of fit into a box. And I know there are certainly a lot of exceptions to that, but I always felt like a villain will only go so far. And this may have been one of my first experiences seeing a villain, especially in a film like this, that didn't seem to be held down by any type of sort of rules. And that made me uncomfortable.
Interesting. That's actually really interesting, because the Joker is like the spirit of anarchy, especially in this film, and to be, I think that was the point of him.
It's totally the point of the Joker,
to make everyone uncomfortable, because that is something that could happen in like corruption of a politician. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention in the States, but that whole
there's a little bit of
I might have seen one or two news articles.
Yeah, so
the Joker as a villain is the last person anybody would ever want to be in a room with.
Yeah.
Because that is the whole point of the character, and that you don't know what he is going to do. He doesn't even know what he is going to do until he decides to do it.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but we can talk about the Joker a little bit once we get into each of the characters and the people portraying them in the film. When I saw it in 2008, I was living with a house full of girls, all theater girls, and like I ended up going to, I assume, a midnight show, because that's what I did back then, with Stu, friend of the podcast, Stu.
Mm-hmm.
And we loved the film, obviously, because I'm a big Batman fan, a fan of the comics, and fan of the cartoons. Pretty much any medium that he's in, I've very much enjoyed him. I very much enjoyed the Arkham Knight games, or the Arkham Batman games that were on the PlayStation, except for the last one, but that's purely my own qualms with the Batmobile stuff.
Yeah.
Anywho, I'm pretty sure I saw it 3 or 4 times, and I think my housemates ended up going as well, which is, they're not snotty theater people. Well, at least not one of them, but they're sort of uppity, and it's not sort of that film that you'd expect them to go to, but they ended up going and loving it, and then going and see it a second time. So, that sort of speaks to they're fans of film. So it sort of speaks to the quality of that film, and how it was portrayed, or at least taken by a lot of people. This film also was one of the first films to feature the IMAX format. Christopher Nolan actually ended up using actual IMAX cameras to shoot certain sequences that he wanted the film to feel bigger than life.
And he succeeded.
It was, and it's crazy because he had to build, like, they actually had to engineer rigs because of the shots that he wanted to do. So the ones that stick out in my mind, and I'm pretty sure for most people, it's all like, it's the big sequences in the film. It's the beginning, the heist.
Yeah,
was the first IMAX. The skyhook scene.
Yes.
The transport scene where they're taking Harvey Dent to jail. So that's another IMAX sequence. And did they do the ending into IMAX? I can't recall. I haven't seen it in a week. Honestly, I watched the movie again last week, but I think those are the 3 main big ones,
right?
That they did.
Did you guys actually see it in IMAX?
Yeah, I made a point to go see it in IMAX because
can't remember if I saw it in IMAX or not.
Like, I'm just wondering if does that mean that, like, is that the kind of thing where you're watching the movie and then when you got to that sequence in the movie, the screen sort of got wider and bigger?
Oh yes.
So basically, what they did is they used the full. So if you're watching it on your TV right now, if you watch a regular film, you'll still get the black bars on the top and the bottom, right? Because of the aspect ratio of the widescreen that we watch for films, at least for films in theater. But for IMAX, they use the full width of that. It's a fuller frame.
Okay.
So the good thing about IMAX is that you get the bigger resolution. Like it was filmed on 70 mil, and then you get the higher quality sound because it has to hit certain standards to be an IMAX film. Okay. And that was an official IMAX film. You'll see now that that there are films that are formatted for IMAX. You should see this in IMAX, but basically what they're doing is they're not putting in the bars that they do when they release the film. So it's not real IMAX. So you have to go to actual people who use the IMAX.
Are they actually
cameras.
Cutting off part of the picture in that in order to fill the screen? No.
So when they're filming on the monitors, you'll see that that they shoot for a certain aspect ratio, and then there's headroom, and then there's room at the bottom. Basically, in those IMAX sequences, they'll put that in.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
For films that aren't shot on IMAX cameras. Okay. So yeah. That's a little bit of history about IMAX. Anyway, so where I was going with this was that since this was done with The Dark Knight, you'll often see films nowadays, or at least films in subsequent years after that film, to get the IMAX treatment. We started seeing 3D movies come back into the fold, and now they're doing 4D and they're doing moving chairs like the D seats. Is this something that'll get you to go see a film? Is this like, would an IMAX film make you want to go out and be like, oh, I'm going to spend the extra $8 to go see this in IMAX or 3D, or maybe I'm going to go in these moving seats? Let's go with the hockey.
Occasionally there is a film, and that usually anything related to Marvel will make me shell out the end of the additional cash to sit in a D-box seat or, an IMAX. I had a fantastic experience seeing Infinity War the second time this summer in IMAX. There was so much more detail to it. The CGI characters blended better with the human characters they were interacting with. IMAX formatting and all the bells and whistles that go with it, and that it would usually make me shell out the extra cash.
What about you, Chefs?
Yeah, I think just like Hawk was saying, depending on the film, I remember one that really stuck out in my mind was Avatar. James Cameron's Avatar. I saw that in IMAX and wow, like just the size of the screen and how immersive it felt. I think I also saw it in IMAX 3D, so there was a lot going on, and it just was incredible.
Yeah. I too am one of those people that gets pulled into these special format films. I think that Infinity War was actually the first, if not one of the only, Marvel films that used actual IMAX cameras. So they've shot for the format. I wish that they had released the Blu-ray with that footage. Unfortunately, they did not. Which, a lot of people...
Will that be a special edition later?
You never know. Like, it's really annoying when you see companies do that, especially when you know that there's still space on those Blu-rays for
Absolutely.
that.
Right.
Or even space on a second disc. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. But I love seeing new technology, and I think when films utilize it really well, like the Avengers or like The Dark Knight, it's really good. And if you do see a bad movie using this technology, like I saw, I tend to go see films in the D-box seats because I get scene points, and then I just get free movies every time I go. So every time I go, I'm just like, it's the same amount of points for a D-box or one of these AVX theaters. So why don't I just do the D-box in the AVX and have fun while doing it? But so
just go all out.
It can make a bad movie good. Like I saw, what was the movie? I saw the new Ghostbusters movie, the movie that came out last year that I wanted to be really good, but ended up just being mediocre. Really disappointing. But the D-Box film made it fun. Like I had way more fun. And then
an extra experience as part of it.
Exactly. And then I saw the Hobbit in that 48 frames per second thing that they were doing. And it was neat to watch. It sort of looked weird, but it enhanced the experiences, which is really what I want, especially when you're spending that much money, and really going to the movie theaters is now an experience. Like you can see a movie at home, but you won't have the same feel as you do if you go to the film.
Yeah.
Anyway, so speaking of this film, a lot of people have praised the portrayal of the various characters in this film. Why don't we start with Christian Bale, the Batman, the main man himself? He's quite a character in himself, just as an actor. But what did you think of his portrayal as Batman / Bruce Wayne in the film? Go shows.
Okay. I liked him. I thought he was quite good. I liked him better as Bruce Wayne. I feel than as Batman. I thought that there were a few times where he made some kind of interesting faces when he was in the mask. But overall, I and to sort of go back to my original conversation before about how I really wasn't into the film when I had first seen it. I did watch it yesterday, and I had a very different experience with it. Like I actually was really, really into it yesterday, and my wife actually came to join me for most of the film. And she, just like you guys were saying about various people in your lives that have seen the film, she was really into it too. Like we must have talked about the movie for like 45 minutes after we finished watching it.
You should have recorded it. We could have put it at the end of this podcast.
I know. I kept telling her she needs to come and join the episode and give her thoughts. But yeah, like as I, you can't help but compare, different Batmans, right? Because we've seen so many of them, right?
For sure.
But I liked him. I was, he does have an interesting way of communicating as Batman. And I was trying to justify his gravelly voice by saying, and you guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong here on this, but it seemed like that's how he was trying to hide his identity by changing his voice.
For sure, that's what he did. I really do. The one really good aspect of the current generation is using the voice modulator, but I think Bale did fine using the gravelly voice. What aspect of him playing Bruce Wayne did you were saying that you really enjoyed his portrayal of it, but what aspect of his portrayal did you like?
I mean, just he did have sort of like a cocky kind of rich guy feel. He reminded me a little bit of Tony Stark in some of the way, when he walked in from the helicopter with the two women on his arms.
Yeah.
Or when he goes into the restaurant and he says, "Oh, they're going to let us pull up 2 tables here. I own this place."
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Like I kind of liked the dickishness that he was portraying as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about you, Hawk?
I thought Christian Bale was a perfect actor for it, particularly in the Batman Begins and that, because it was such a well-rounded kind of transformation in that he underwent. It's the character, the actor as the character really pulled it off, and the fact that like the scene where he's coming home from college, he even kind of physically looked a little younger. If that makes any sense in that, without any sort of fancy makeup or anything or CGI tricks in that, haha, Tony Stark. And then to go from that angry young man to finally back to Bruce Wayne and that, after the various experiences that shaped Batman and that imprisonment, a life of crime. All in studying this. It's interesting that you were bringing up the topic of his billionaire boy portrayal in that, because that whole aspect of Bruce Wayne is a complete fabrication.
Yeah, like he was really putting on a show for everybody, right?
Yeah. He's putting on a show for everybody around him in that. He is just basically portraying a character of a billionaire playboy in that.
Yeah.
And of course, he goes over the top with it in that, because that's not really him.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of not theories, but there are a lot of writings out there about how Batman is his real persona and Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Absolutely.
See, whereas
agree more
for Superman, his real self is Clark Kent, and then he puts on the Superman portrayal, right? Like it's really interesting to look at those aspects of like the mask and who the real person is behind. Like I love Christian Bale as well. I think his portrayal as both Bruce Wayne and Batman is very methodical, and you can see that he's a very professional actor. Like he thinks through his roles, like he researches them a lot, and
he's a very committed actor in that, because I hate to interrupt, but like the role he did before this movie, right before Batman Begins, was a machinist.
Yeah, where he lost 80 pounds for that role. But like the research that he went into it, like you can see it in just the little mannerisms that he had as Bruce Wayne. Like you'll see him at the party, like you were talking about how he came in like the swagger and stuff, like drinks in hand, women on his hand, but like then he goes out into the balcony like for some alone time, and he spits out his wine because that he can't be drinking because he might have to go out and fight. And like, there's like those little nods, like Chris Nolan and Christian Bale, like their work together just for that, like those little character moments that are like nothing are perfect for those characters, because like it just adds so much if you notice it, but you don't have to because it seems so natural. And it's
that Playboy part that over the top is why more people don't, sort of guess that he might be Batman.
Mm-hmm. Like that scene where he jumps his Lambo in front of that to save that dude that was gonna reveal his identity. Like, and he's just like, what are you talking about? I was trying to run the light. Like all of that stuff. Like it's so well done. There's a reason why people call this a good film, not just like a good movie. Like it's a film, like it's a piece of work, like so good. But let's move on to let's not give Christian Bale any more praise. It goes to his head. You've heard the stories about him and his Terminator stuff.
All heard that audio tape.
But anyway, so in 2016. So 2 years ago, the internet was ablaze because Jared Leto and WB released the first image of him as the Joker for Suicide Squad, and people were like, oh my god, what are they doing? And the internet goes crazy like that. But unfortunately, we saw the film, and there was just cause for that. But people should remember that 10 years ago, they released the first image, like promo image of Heath Ledger as the Joker, and people went nuts because he wasn't the traditional, white makeup, and then the Jack. Pretty much, people were expecting Jack Nicholson.
Right.
Let's be honest. That's what people wanted to see.
They wanted this. They wanted to see, the coiffed hair, the fine tailored purple suit. They did, and they were confused when they saw this and that. I was not, because I expected this and that. I'd seen what he had done, like trying to put Gotham and the whole kind of DC universe into a more grounded, recognizable reality in that. And I totally expected, the Joker's portrayal to be grounded in that kind of same kind of realism in that. I didn't exactly know what they were going to do, but it wasn't surprising to me what they did.
It was going to be something different for sure. Like you could tell that, that's where they were going. Like you saw it with the Scarecrow. Like he wasn't traditionally.
It made sense.
So the internet went ablaze, and then people saw the film and were like, okay, Oscar.
Yeah.
And then they gave him the Oscar for it, which was, well deserved. What did you guys, we talked about our expectations, like me and you, Hawk talked about our expectations. Shows, did you have any expectations going into the film? I guess you had seen things before you actually saw the film. Did you have any expectations for his portrayal of the Joker?
Like, I mean, he looked super creepy. I didn't really have specific expectations around his acting. I don't think I knew a lot about his acting prior to that film.
Except for 10 things I hate about you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But like I said before, like when I actually saw him in the movie, it made me very uncomfortable in a way that I wasn't used to watching films.
Yeah, he locked himself in an apartment to get ready for that role. Like he isolated himself. Like again, another very dedicated actor. and he brought everything to that role. And it's incredible to see that Joker that's just, he's so methodical and so oh God, I can't say this word.
Anarchistic.
Oh my, this is horrible. And I know how to spell it. I apparently just don't know how to say it. But like everything that he wanted to do to like tear down society, like he thought it all through. And that's the cool thing about the Joker. Like people think that he's just like off his like rocker. He just doesn't know what he's doing. It's just full anarchy where it's, chaos anarchy. But no, his is the methodical anarchy.
He was in charge the whole time.
He knew what he wanted to bring down and he knew how to do it. Like he knew how people reacted and stuff. Have you guys heard any of the theories about the backstory of the Joker that people have been coming up with about his portrayal?
In as far as the Dark Knight universe? Yeah. Okay. No, I haven't.
Enlighten us.
So the most popular one that I've seen online is that he's ex special forces. Like something broke when he went away. Like he was part of it, like a special team that did interrogations on enemy combatants. Like you see that with how he does the whole when he gets captured and he faces off with Batman in the interrogation room. Like it's methodical how he's like playing off of him and knowing where it could go. And people were talking about his military, his training and stuff like that. You can see that certain ways that he held himself with weapons or with what he planned to do. What do you guys think about this theory?
That's theory. I don't know. That theory really doesn't hold any kind of water with me.
It's way better. Like it's better explained than what I said because I can't totally remember it. But a lot of it was based on that interrogation scene.
See, the thing about the portrayal of him in the Dark Knight universe is that it's a mystery. We don't know where he came from, and that,
and that's part of his story, right? Because every time he told his, this was another part, is because he kept on changing his story, so he wanted to off kilter everyone that he talked to.
As far as we know about him, he could have been the most straight-laced, ordinary guy with no military training, and that something happened to this man along the way, and that caused a complete shift in his personality, his mental perspective. I don't know how to phrase it, but we're talking about a complete flip of a human being, from somebody ordinary into somebody monstrous. I guess it's I guess that line he said about being ahead of the curve was a little telling in that. There was a theory back when in the it was an old comic book. It's the Arkham Asylum graphic novel. I don't know if you guys remember that from years ago. There was a psychiatrist who diagnosed the Joker in that as having a hyper sanity, and it was a form of madness in which to cope with the modern world around him. And I always found that very telling about the character.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, let's go with the shows first. What do you think of that?
All of those theories are really, really interesting to me because I was really engrossed by the idea that we didn't know anything about this guy, and so that sort of takes your imagination anywhere that it could possibly go. Like he could totally have just been a normal guy, or he could, there could have been some kind of a comic book origin style thing with him where, wasn't it in the Jack Nicholson one where he falls into a vat of chemical?
It was
right. So there's like an origin story.
Yeah, slightly adapted from the Alan Moore, Killing Joke storyline, I believe. But involving
with the Red Hood and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, it's like basically the origin of that character is that he's simply reciprocity to what Bruce Wayne started when he adopted the Batman.
Anti-Batman.
Yeah. He was the inevitable pushback.
It was and I think the whole ending of Batman Begins where they start talking about escalation.
Yes,
like this is the perfect thing. Like you get Batman in his suit and you get this crazy guy in a suit. That's, I don't want to say crazy because he's not crazy,
No.
right? He's just he is the Joker. It's hard to go into say anything other than that.
But it's like sorry,
go for it.
And the way he was described in that, it's like it wasn't, it was very grounded in the realism in that, because they were tracking his criminal record of armed robbery, a murder, the rap sheet of just like basically an escalating violent criminal,
Yeah, that's the thing that really upset me about the Suicide Squad for the Joker portrayal, because from what we see of the Joker, it doesn't seem like there's no reasoning for him to be that dickish, right? He was just being a dick for being a dick's sake. Like, he was just killing people,
hanging out in clubs, drinking. Like no,
it felt wrong. He felt like a gangbanger, and it just like there was nothing really scary about him other than he was just, he'll kill you because he wants to. But there was this line in a comic book, I wish I had which issue it was for Batman, and the Joker is like, you know what, he takes the Batmobile and he's like, and he tells this like street urchin to look after the car for him, and the kid's like, oh no, I can't do that because you'll kill me. And he's like, why would I kill you? What's so funny about that?
I would only kill you if it was funny.
Right? And that I think that line in itself encompasses what the Joker is.
Even in the Dark Knight, there's a line in the movie near the beginning where they're trying to do this whole thing against the mafia.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was Batman that says it or one of them says, forget about the clown, we'll deal with him later. This is the mafia.
Yeah. They had bigger fish to fry, right?
But they're realizing that he was really the biggest fish
in the pond. Yeah, like because he was, not only was Batman working against the mob, but so is the Joker, and they didn't realize that. And that was they assumed just because he was dressed up like a clown, they could just they don't have to deal with him because he's just another lunatic. That was their downfall for that. The cool thing about the Joker is that he wanted to prove this point that he could, corrupt, like we talked about earlier, corrupt one of the brightest shining stars, which was Harvey Dent in the film. And then we get to see a wonderful portrayal of Two-Face by Aaron Eckhart in that film. I think the best thing about the idea of Two-Face in this film, especially, it's pretty much in comics as well, is that he's the mirror opposite of Bruce Wayne. Like, you get Harvey
working
as the,
I think I get it. Working class,
and then he's upstanding. He's a politician. Then you get Bruce Wayne, who's the playboy drunk, and then you get that dark side of. They both have dark sides, but the dark side of Bruce Wayne is a more vigilant stuff, and then Two-Face is the criminal stuff. Like he took things for chance, hence the coin. What did you think of Aaron Eckhart in the film? Shows go.
I thought it was amazing, and I thought like he really did make you feel like he had this virtue about him, and he was really good at his job. And there was a point in the film where it seemed like even Batman was like, this guy can take over for me. I don't even need to be doing this anymore. Right. And from that, I did find the transformation into Two-Face a little bit unbelievable for me. I felt like it, even though as an actor, I thought he did a fantastic job and I was really into the character, but it just seemed like he turned evil a little bit too quickly for me to believe. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
I think more that it was a gradual turn. Like the Joker was like just peeling different pieces away from him, like showing the corruption of all his people, and then killing the love of his life, and then scarring him physically. I think it just broke him, and I think that's what the Joker wanted to show Batman, is that he could break anyone, but he couldn't because he didn't make Batman break his rule.
That was always a weird point for me because I wasn't exactly sure if him breaking Harvey Dent was part of the plan originally, or if it was a modification of the plan. Based on the fact that he was actually so badly injured in that from Batman rescuing him, and that I do believe he knew Batman would go for Rachel, which is why he gave him Harvey's address instead. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if, I wasn't entirely sure that was always part of the plan. It was to break.
I don't know. That. I think it was just to break him. I don't think he wanted him to go that far. I feel like maybe the loony bin would have been fine for him. But I think it was definitely a plot to take someone that was supposed to save the city in the limelight and just get rid of him and show Joker was just show the No, it was more that he wanted to show the city that he can corrupt anyone and that it's his city.
Not just right. I knew he would probably want to break him, but as far as corrupting him, as I said, I think the Joker is much more adaptable in his plans than that. As far as taking advantage of the circumstances.
As soon as he knew that he lived, I think the gears just went into overdrive and was like, okay, now I know what I can go with him even more so. Yeah. I think he just wanted to break the city at that point.
Yeah.
And then just went from there and made it even better.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point we should probably bring up in that about the Joker and that, because in every, usually he is so uncategorizable as far as his motive. His goals are and his struggle against Batman are always ideological. There's never any material gain or anything to be everything is just about a point of view.
I remember there was going to be a scene in Dark Knight Rises where they were going to go to the Arkham, and they were just going to go by one of the cells and it was going to have the Joker laughing. Or they were going to open the cell to the Joker and he was going to be gone. Just as a nice little Easter egg. And I sort of wish that they did that, but, without Heath, it would have been a little weird.
Yeah. From what I had understood, he was supposed to play an important part in the third film,
Yeah, for sure. Well, you get that, you can see that with this movie, right? He brought back Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow right at the beginning to show that, the gears are always going he doesn't kill people all the other Batman. So, and it's literally every single Batman except for him has killed.
They really, all their opponents. Well, let's see. Jim Carrey.
Well, he let Ra's al Ghul die, but he didn't kill him. He just didn't save him. Like Daredevil. But you know what? What about? Is there anyone else you want to talk about? We can talk about Michael Caine. We could talk about not Harvey Dent. That's the first time we saw Renee Montoya on film as a character, and then who else do we see? New Rachel. Wait. Let's go in this. New Rachel.
That was always my biggest sticking point with The Dark Knight, and that I don't know why they had to fire Katie Holmes in that. I know
she didn't come back.
Well, from what I understood, it was the whole thing. What was their name at the time? Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes.
Tom Cruise.
Their abbreviated name. What was their name?
I don't recall this.
Apparently, the producers hated the whole thing, and that because it was. They said it took attention away from Batman Begins, and they even blamed her for potentially hurting the box office draw on that, and that's why she was not invited back to the next film.
She was invited. She walked away. That was from her. When she got interviewed about it.
Okay. Anyway,
basically,
I would have loved
and that was the time when she
come back, and that because I was not a big fan of Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So basically, she, because of the Tom Cruise Scientology thing, she walked away from the Batman
that makes more sense.
Franchise. Unfortunately, okay. And then because Christopher Nolan wanted her to come back, obviously, because you never want to recast a character
of that importance. Yeah,
that's of that importance, especially in the middle of a franchise reboot, basically. Yeah, well, I thought Maggie Gyllenhaal did fine. She's a good actress. I had no qualms. She wasn't magnificent and she wasn't horrible. She was just sort of
I kind of felt the same way.
Maggie Gyllenhaal. No one wants to go to bat for her.
No, as a fan of Batman Begins, and I think she actually brought a lot to that character and that as of Rachel Dawes, and she was one of the main draws of that film for me, and I liked the chemistry between her and Christian Bale a lot better.
She had this spunkiness in the first film that wasn't really. She was sort of spunky in the second one. She just sort of seemed more. She was all right.
She was all right. She was more of a plot point to this film, though.
Yeah. Alfred, amazing as always.
Michael Caine.
Yeah, Michael. The whenever I think about doing an accent or like a British accent, or at least a Michael Caine, I think of his the size of a tangerine. The thing that he says in this, and it's because of did you guys ever see that trip movie or that road trip?
They do the competing Michael Caine accents.
Yeah, the competing Michael Caine accent. So whenever when I first saw that, I was like, "Oh my god, it's really easy to do a Michael Caine accent," and then I always do that now. So whenever I think of it,
when your voice, when it goes emotional, it gets drawn out a bit.
The size of a tangerine. And then they go into the early Michael Caine versus the later Michael Caine. Oh man, brilliant. If you haven't seen the film, guys, you really should.
I will not bury another Batman.
Yeah, another Batman. I will not bury another member of the Wayne family because he wouldn't have buried another Batman, or else this would have taken a whole new.
I was quoting the Trip.
All the Batman.
They actually say that in the Trip. I will not bury another Batman. Yes,
I don't remember that. But anywho, let's see.
Morgan Freeman was good in this film.
Yes,
he's good in everything, but he's always Morgan Freeman.
He's totally Morgan Freeman. He's Morgan Freeman in everything Morgan Freeman is in, and that's okay with me.
I remember this comedian actually commenting on that because when Patrice O'Neill was talking about it, he said the inclusion of that one character made everything make sense. You know, he's like, how could a billionaire come up with all this stuff on his own? No, they put in this guy. He's a tech expert. Then everything made sense.
Yeah. I like that character in the comics too. I thought it was really cool. You know who doesn't get enough credit but was great in this movie? Eric Roberts. He's a great actor.
Oh my god, Star 80. I don't know.
Yeah,
if you guys ever saw that back in the day.
No, but I've seen a lot of his work, and people call him the hardest working actor in Hollywood, which is understandable. He has 512 credits as an actor. Like that's
he should have a much bigger career than he actually had. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, well, he had those drug issues in the 90s, so I think that the late 80s, 90s that I think sort of screwed him. He was interviewed on Q last week, so I'm sure that's up on a podcast for Q right now. But I thought he was fantastic, and I love seeing him. He was on Suits as well. He's a great actor. More props to Eric Roberts, all around. Give him more props.
Oh, come on, Pope of Greenwich Village. Does anybody remember it?
Nope.
Oh, the famous line, and he had this amazing line towards the end of the movie. They took my thumbs. They took my thumbs.
That would be way more tragic now with kids and cell phones. But anywho, we've talked about different characters in this film, and I think one of the most important characters is the city of Gotham itself. It's a living, breathing part of the film, and I think Christopher Nolan definitely wanted to showcase this in all three of the films. I know that. Let's start with Shells, because I know that when you were watching it yesterday, you're like, why would anyone want to live in Gotham? Why don't you
I texted you about this because I was watching all of this horrible stuff happening to all these people.
Yeah.
And it just popped into my head, why would you want to live in this sort of place that's so full of crime? but for me too, when I think of Gotham, like it makes me think of the like I'm drawing a blank here. The original Batman with Michael Keaton films.
The 89 one? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like I'm thinking about that look.
The dark gothic.
Yeah,
yeah, like very.
Where there was actually a much more of a visual component to the gothic, decrepit nature of Gotham City, as opposed to like the metropolis or the metropolitan.
Yeah, I agree. I would not want to move into the 89 Gotham, no. But maybe the 2008. It looked so. Basically, what? Sorry to cut you off, but we'll go back to you, Shows.
Sure.
What Nolan did to make this film is that he amalgamated New York City and Chicago. To make this like coast city town, so like New York, but he wanted it to feel like Chicago, and you can tell he filmed in Chicago, and all the scenery is very Chicago-y. So basically, he wanted it to feel like this big metropolis. No, I was gonna say not to use
the word
metropolis, a bad one. He wanted this giant city, like this living city, like New York, like city that never slept. And I feel like he did. He was possible. Like he made that possible. So Shows, continue on your point. Sorry to jump in there.
I guess it's just like all of the supervillains that seem to make Gotham their home. Mm-hmm. All of the like the scene in the film where they were transferring Harvey Dent to jail. And there's this like high speed sort of, that's kind of more of a low speed police chase. Where their cop cars blowing up everywhere, and looking at those scenes, there was still traffic. Like there were still cars and stuff that were driving like beside them and behind them. And I was like, how could you be heading home after a long day at work, and you see the Joker with a rocket launcher shooting at a cop car.
To be fair, it appears that there's only been a couple really bad guys in Gotham, like Scarecrow, Joker, Two-Face, and later Bane /
but he was an import,
Catwoman. So. But even Catwoman wasn't really that big of a bad guy.
No.
So really, it's sort of like if you lived in New York, right? Because you get the mafia there. Mm-hmm. The mafia's still there. They had the mafia in Gotham. And I'm sure, and they had Trump, so there's a big villain there. Sorry, I made that political. Sorry, he doesn't live there anymore. But it I feel like it's not something that happens fairly regular.
Yeah.
But can you think of Gotham without thinking of previous incarnations of Gotham? Like for me, I couldn't separate that like 2008 Christopher Nolan Gotham from all the previous. Like when I hear Gotham, I think of all the previous Batman incarnations and all, whether they be TV, movies, animated. It's Gotham. It's a place. It's
like a living history to it. Yeah. I feel like just because of how much media, like Batman media, I have consumed, that there are so many different ones that I have to separate them, or it's just going to be confusing. Yeah. Like even now with the current DCEU, like that Gotham is horrible, and it reminds me more of like, I think that the new one is sort of a mix between 89 and 2008,
like the Batman versus Superman Gotham.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the ones
and the cities that are we saw that.
Yeah, pretty much the city that's across the bay from the other giant city. Why they would be two giant cities across the water that within eye distance from each other, I don't know.
Because it worked for the story.
But did it? Did it really? No. Why would I don't want to go into Batman vs Superman again, and how stupid that full plot point is. But sorry. Hawk going to Gotham, I can't talk about it.
Well, again, keeping with the realism that he wanted to bring to the Dark Knight series, and that the way he balanced it out, especially in the first film, and that was kind of exemplified in this one scene in that where Rachel Dawes is driving a newly returned Bruce Wayne home, and that, and as they're going along a city, it looks like everything else in that. She decides to take, when he says that awful thing about not caring in that, She takes him down that ramp into the underbelly of Gotham, and I think that's where the kind of the true genius of the film kind of takes place. I'm talking about
it really grounded it, and it made it feel more
like
real.
There is a major metropolitan city, but built over the remains of the old cities, and which is basically any city going back to Rome, and that cities are always built over the remains of the other cities, and that what separates Gotham from every other kind of fictionalized city in comic books or movies or that is that it's the roots that are always still there, and that no matter how much they build over the city, there are these kind of poisonous roots that still seep up, which you can see it quite a bit in Batman Begins with the Narrows. The entire city looks different as he goes into it.
I really love that it felt like the roots of Gotham were like crumbling and were corrupted, and I think that idea has made its way into like the comics way more now that they have the Court of Owls. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but it's pretty much like a criminal syndicate that goes back to the founding of Gotham, which is amazing. It's really nice to have this super grounded city. And I think that's one of the main aspects of these films is that this is a grounded film, but it doesn't feel like
out of touch.
It doesn't feel out of touch. I think that's a good way of putting it. Another good thing about this film is that it's probably one of the first films that definitely used two villains properly. What have you guys thought of, like, I think the trend of using more than one villain became more in effect after this film, and how well they did. Like, you could see it in some of the earlier Batman films, but they didn't do it right. Like, I think this is the first film that really did two villains properly, and then it started a chain in Marvel films, and then later DC films about having multiple villains. What are you guys' thoughts of using two villains in a film? Too good, bad, whatever.
It depends on how they do it, and you're right. They did it right in this one. You could also say, but the Batman films are pretty much they were pretty much. I think Batman Returns was probably the genesis of the two villain movie. That makes any sense. But in this one, our prime focus was always the Joker in that, and they did.
It was sort of stepping on each other's toes or anything.
Yeah. No, because basically Harvey was just kind of his final. It was almost like the final card in his deck, as in his war against Batman. Which I don't know. What do you think,
Chels?
Like it almost seems like the trope is to, if you're going to have multiple villains, they all have to sort of team up against the hero. And I think this worked really well because they didn't. They just existed. They interact, like they were there. Like they were. It was important that they sort of connected in the story, but it wasn't important that they were battling him at the same time or had the same plan and were implementing it together and teamed up. So I think it worked really well.
Or did the team up and then one guy eventually has a change of heart, like they tried to do with Spider-Man 3?
Yeah.
I know.
I'd be remiss to continue talking about Batman films without talking about Christopher Nolan himself. Were you guys familiar with his works before the film, and have you seen many of his films afterwards?
Yeah.
Shows, let's go with you.
So I didn't realize how much I was a fan of his work until I actually sat down and took a look through some of his filmography. And I like movies like Inception and Interstellar. I'm a big fan of both those films, and I just I really enjoy his work. It's very cerebral, and it makes you really consider things that you wouldn't normally consider when watching a film.
And they're popular films, so it's amazing that he'll make you think and feel these things in a film that you'll you thought that you were going just to have some good old popcorn fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to say I agree with that 100% because I'm not really an artsy film person. Like, if that's really a description of of some film fans.
It really is.
Yeah, like you guys could probably list off all kinds of movies that I haven't seen, but if they were bigger and they were more popular and they were sort of your blockbuster summer hit, then I probably have a better chance of having seen them rather than like independent film or something that you might have seen in a festival.
As far as Chris Nolan and that, he's probably like the last true auteur who's working in big budget cinema. I don't. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
When you're
at least the new generation, right? Like the older generation's still there, but they're sort of like under death rattle. Doing things like, I don't know, Indiana Jones's son swinging with monkeys or something stupid like that. Anyway,
that's a whole podcast. But
I feel like every single thing we're saying, Steve would have a comment on.
Yep.
Oh,
yep. He totally would.
We miss you, Steve.
Sorry. Continue, Hawk, about your love of Christopher.
So we were talking about this before it began. That I've been a fan of his back from Memento, and that and watching him kind of progress from there. Insomnia, that was one mix. I quite enjoyed that film, actually. I think everybody listening to this should probably go back and give that a second glance. And when I heard that he was picked up for Batman Begins, and that was pretty much what really piqued my interest in seeing the film, because I was kind of really coming out of that my indie, art film phase, and that this was really before like kind of comic book movies really took over again. Hearing him being put in charge of a project that large and with a character that iconic, and that it was really what whetted my appetite to see the film. And
it sort of came out of nowhere. You're like, really? The Memento guy is going to do Batman?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing this.
And then, I mean, Batman Begins, it did what it did box office wise. Did very well box office wise. I don't think people give it enough credit, but a year later, he comes out with The Prestige.
Oh,
such a fantastic movie. It's something that you can watch over and over again.
Yeah. That film, incredible. Like, you got to see Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, act in a different light. Like you normally saw him in action films, but this is, or romantic comedies, but this was sort of another cerebral film, right? And dark.
These two men in that it locked in this kind of in this struggle, over theater.
Yeah. And it's incredible. Like every single one of his films, I think, brings something new to the plate. Like he brought this new feeling to the comic book universe by doing the Batman, Dark Knight, and then Dark Knight Rises. He took film editing and put it on its head with Memento. Just editing and storytelling.
Right.
You get like The Prestige, you get the idea of magic, but like, and performance, and then you make it dark. And like the book was great too. Like I have
never read the book.
Oh, I'll let you borrow it sometime. But then you go into the deep sci-fi with Interstellar, right? Like the science just behind that film is incredible. Yeah. And then you go even further, like to his film from last year. You go to Dunkirk, and you see another masterclass in editing and storytelling, and like just like every single film that he's done has like raised the stakes in that genre, and it's incredible. I don't think Dunkirk is the best war film personally, because I think that goes to Saving Private Ryan for me, because I love that film. But I think Dunkirk is like, just from the first sequence where those guys are like trying to find water and just like walking around Dunkirk, and then chaos happens, and then from that point forward it's a heart attack for like 2 or 3 hours. I saw it in 70 millimeter, like I said earlier when we were talking about the IMAX stuff, and I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like, you don't get that from any other filmmakers pretty much anymore. I don't think.
And speaking of the way, as far as editing and storytelling and that, Dunkirk was brilliant on this other level in that, in portraying 3 different stories in 3 different time periods. Because the first story he was telling in that with the men waiting on the beach took place over a week. The boat trip across the bay took place over the course of a day. And then the aerial combat fights involving Tom Hardy took place over the course of a 45-minute period. You know, and he blended those in almost seamlessly in that. I actually maybe not seamlessly in that, but in a way that I had to go back. It's like, how is he doing this? Wait a minute, here's Cillian Murphy's character, and he's back in with the rest of them. You know, on the rafts.
Yeah, the moment when you start seeing things like, and you're like, wait a minute, that's weird. And then he ties it all in with that brilliant ending that Shows hasn't seen yet.
Yeah, let's not.
It's not really a spoiler
for a while. But spoilers for me.
It's more the event.
You should have done your homework, Shows.
The event happened. The event happened like 80 years ago. I think.
Hey, don't really... give it away. I want to know who wins that
war. I think it's safe to say that I think his influence on film is going to be felt for a long time. I don't really want to talk about his influence on the current DCEU. I think that's a topic for another day. Maybe we'll talk about Justice League, or maybe when Shazam comes out, we can see if that Nolan groundedness that they tried to capture is still there or something. Oh, Aquaman's in December. We can talk about it then.
We will talk about it then. There's one point I wanted to bring up as far as Chris Nolan's approach to film.
Go for it.
In contrast to current comic book movies, lack of or bare minimum use of CGI.
I agree. That was, and he did something weird. Like he put Batman in sunlight, and it sort of worked. Like most people were like, "Oh, that's weird," but he made this weird practical Batman, and everything was practical, and that was incredible.
Going back to the Dark Knight, one of my favorite scenes was when he flipped the truck over. And a lot of people wondered how that happened in that, because everybody at the time was saying CGI. He did it through CGI. No, he did it through a very practical effect in that I wanted to illustrate for the podcast. Mm-hmm. In flipping that tractor trailer over, what they used was a huge hydraulic hammer inside the cargo container that the truck was pulling.
Yeah.
And it was completely painted, green, so that they could green screen it out in the final editing process.
Yeah, that they actually released a making of that sequence before the film came out, because there was such a big, response to seeing that in the trailer. Yeah, and they have it on the Blu-ray too. It's I love that on all of his Blu-rays he has behind the scenes on how he did practical things.
Yeah,
in there, and that's amazing, especially in Dunkirk when they used actual old planes. But anyway, you know what?
Or the Bat Pod, because I do remember the sequence on that, because they were talking about how they were, that was largely being considered to being handed off to a CGI company to do in that, but once a practical, actual mechanical device was built in that, and they were getting these shots of Bale on it and that, with the cape flowing in the background and that, he knew he had to incorporate, the real one into
I
the
think
movie. That's
the most magnificent thing, is that they didn't get the cape stuck in the wheel. They made it possible that was not going to happen. Because I remember seeing it the first time, I was like, if his cape gets stuck in that giant wheel, that man is dead.
Yes.
I think the only real CGI part was the ejection sequence.
Right.
They blew up the Batmobile, but the actual motorcycle coming out was not real.
Yeah, you can tell that actually if you look closely.
But whatever. That's fine. The one CGI scene, I think we're fine with.
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, I still believe that this is probably one of the best, if not the best, comic book film I've ever seen. And I think it does hold that place in my heart. I think it is probably the best comic books film ever. Let's, you know what? Since we've been talking about Batman for such a long time, and I know we have to end this podcast soon. And my wife is walking back here, trying not to make any noise so that she doesn't show up on it. Why don't we talk about we were talking about different incarnations of the Batman on screen. What would be your favorite portrayal of Batman, either live action, animated? It's hard to say comic book because comic book is comic book. But Hawk, why don't you go first? What's your favorite Batman?
I'll throw out a dark horse here in that it was released after, I think it was it released after Dark Knight? I can't remember. But Batman Gotham Knight. I think it was 6 different stories in that told between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and it was a fantastic portrayal of Batman in that. I believe it started out with a bunch of children in Gotham and that who were telling their reports of seeing the Batman and how very
I remember it reminded me of the Animatrix. Yes. that whole thing. The stories were all great. There was one in particular called Pain Management, where Bruce Batman, after being wounded in trying to find his way through a sewer, was going through a memory of his trips through India and that, looking for gurus to teach him pain management, which was this technique of basically not blocking out pain, but learning how to control your reactions to it. And it was another one of those things that really kind of threw you into the psychology of Bruce, as far as like how far he went in his training and that to become this person. I think my favorite part about Gotham Knights, and I have that on Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure I have it on Blu-ray.
Blue DVD.
Is that they got Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman that's always in my head from the original animated series, to come back and do the voice of the Bat for that. What about you, Shells? What's your favorite incarnation of Batman?
Okay, so I've got 2 that I'm going to mention. One of them.
Don't worry, I have 2 as well.
Okay, one of them I sort of mentioned before, and that's the Michael Keaton's portrayal of Batman, specifically the Tim Burton 1989 Batman movie.
Classic.
That's fair.
And I was what I've been like 8 years old when that movie came out, and
that movie was everywhere when that came out.
11 years. I was 11 when it came out, and boy, that was my whole world.
It was everyone's whole world. It was on every magazine. It was in every newsstand. It was on the radio station because of Prince.
Oh, there's lots of Prince playing.
It was everywhere. And you know what? I didn't mind it. It was cool because you didn't see Batman shirts until that movie. Yeah, I don't think at least I don't recall ever seeing a Batman shirt until that movie. And I was like, oh man, I want a Batman shirt. I don't think I ever got one.
But that iconic sort of Batman logo with the bat surrounded by the gold sort of behind it. Like I don't know. I had a poster in my room with just that logo on it. And I love the movie too. It was dark, and I mean it was really Tim Burton, and it was like we talked about, it was very goth. Like the way that they did the set dressing and everything.
For sure. I remember in particular the part where the Batwing flies up into the clouds and then goes up and does the symbol in the moon.
Right over the moon.
I remember thinking that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in film at that time.
The best thing about that movie I remember is that it was actually something because my dad brought me to see it and that, and he was just half expecting to have to sit through a kid's film and that. But he was there for Jack Nicholson and he loved it.
I remember because we were 8 at the time when that movie came out. I remember being scared in that movie because of the
frightening parts.
The beginning when they were doing the surgery, when he was doing the surgery on himself. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is crazy.
Oh, that back alley doctor and that. He's like, I did the best I could. Look at what I'm working with.
Mirror. Oh, it like so, and it's so classic. Like so many of the sequences in there, because it, you don't become a classic unless you're parodied on The Simpsons, right. And that movie got parodied to
when
hell
Krusty
and
the
back.
Clown slams down the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. What was your other one though, Shows?
The other one just goes back to the discussion I had before about I like it to be very whimsical. I like it to be fun. I like to have a big smile on my face when I watch Batman. And so I'm going to say the Lego Batman movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the Adam West one, but Lego Batman. Oh man,
I had so much fun with the Lego Batman movie because I was able to let go of all of my sort of preconceived notions of what Batman should be, and I was just able to have fun with all of the little jokes and all of the lighthearted approach to the character and to all the characters. And I remember I took my son to see it. It was one of his first films that he's seen in the movie theater.
Nice.
And we just had a blast watching it. We were laughing the whole time. And it was still Batman, and there were a lot of inside jokes in there for people who have been fans for a long time.
So well done. Yeah, those Easter eggs in that film, man, we should talk about the Lego Batman movies sometime.
Yeah.
Or at least Lego movies in general, because I think they're all done really well.
I have not seen the Ninjago movie, but I don't know, maybe it's good.
I haven't seen that one either, but I heard it's all right. But I feel like there's a lot of background in Ninjago that I won't know.
Yeah.
Like that's a universe that's already like had TV series and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Lego Batman, like seeing him in the Lego movie and just the popularity of how of that character that would spin off into this own movie by itself was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Will Arnett,
and they did it so well. Like they
Will Arnett was so good as Batman, and that was really you could see that the Bruce Wayne was the mask in that, because he was always as Batman, pretty much, unless he was at that party.
Yeah,
in the Lego Batman film. And I think the good thing about the Lego Batman movie is that the idea of family, which is really important to the character of Batman, was really the cornerstone of that film.
The main theme, yeah.
Yeah. And as a family film, that's amazing to have. Plus they brought back Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. Come on. That's amazing.
Shows your son's going to be talking about this in a podcast 30 years from now. I remember going to see this with my dad.
Oh yeah. It's not gonna be a podcast. It's gonna be some sort of thing that gets beamed into people's brains, right?
Neurocast.
Yeah. You know what? You should coin that. You should copyright
immediately.
it.
Get that site tomorrow.
Get that domain.
Get that domain, and then get the .org and all of the .nets and whatnot. Oh man, I didn't even think about Lego Batman when I was thinking about my favorite incarnation. I also have two. Hawk, did you want to put a second one out there, because we're both going to do two?
Second one.
Before I go into my
mine, I will go with Batman Begins, because it really kicked off. Yeah.
So the Nolan verse,
the Nolan verse in general, but in particular Batman Begins. I remember coming out of that theater just buzzing. And it's and I told my brother, go see this movie, and he's like, really, Batman? Are you sure? I was like, yes, you have to see this movie.
See, now I have to watch it again, because I feel like I will have a different
for sure. I think now that the society in general is way more comic book savvy. I think those films have aged like a wine, like a good wine. I don't know about Dark Knight Rises. Maybe I'll watch that again. Maybe tonight, or nope, it's late. Maybe tomorrow. But those films have a maturity in it that you don't really see in
because it really took you into the psychology of the character in that, and it's like it wasn't just some guy leaping from rooftops and that, the training he went into in that. It being, taught to, you can fight 7 men and that I will teach you how to engage 700.
Yeah. That the whole ninjas. Anyway, let's not get into that, or we're going to talk about Batman Begins forever. I think various little aspects from all the Batmans I think are really good. I don't think there's been a really bad portrayal of Batman. Even I like Ben Affleck. People give him crap, but I think he's probably one of the better things of the DCEU. This is not one of my things, but I think his portrayal is quite good. Also his Daredevil. So I think my number one, when
Affleck was the bomb in Phantom.
Yeah. Phantom's like a mo. I think my favorite incarnation of Batman is Batman the animated series. I know we talked about it. What was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? Or something?
Last podcast we ended up kind of broaching that because of the box set coming out.
Yeah,
but that universe is perfect to me. I think everything, the mythology is done perfectly. I think Kevin Conroy has the perfect Batman voice versus a perfect Bruce Wayne voice. He has his natural bassy voice as Batman, but then he pitches it higher as Bruce Wayne. So I think that's I think that's brilliantly done as a voice actor. I think all the villains have been, perfect in that animated series. Like Mark Hamill as the Joker is the Joker voice I hear in my head. Pretty much everything I read now or think about when I think about Batman is done with those guys' voices. I think, perfect. My second really way off portrayal of Batman that I think is so good is Batman Beyond. Which no one thinks about anymore because it's been off the air for such a long time. But I love that series. I think Terry McGinnis as Batman is such a good counterpart to old man Bruce Wayne, who's stuck in his ways, and Terry McGinnis sort of feels like Spider-Man mixed with Batman put together, and I think that's right. The way that they did that was brilliant. And I'm sad that they never ended up doing the movie that they were planning on doing when the Batman movies failed, originally failed. I'm talking about the the Schumacher ones, because they were one of the proposed things before they ended up with Batman Begins was Batman Beyond, which I think would be perfect. And I think if they do it, eventually, like nowish, maybe not nowish because of the DCEU, but they could totally have Michael Keaton come back as old man Bruce Wayne.
I saw that. I saw a little headline about that recently.
What?
Yeah, there was somebody was posting about that. Bringing, it's like they wanted to see, old man Keaton come back as old man Bruce.
I feel like that would be more of the what was it called, the Dark Knight Returns or whatever, the the Frank Miller thing. I think they wanted to see that kind of old man Batman. But I would love to see Batman Beyond.
Yeah, I wish I was more familiar with that series and that. I may have to go back and read it.
You would love it. You would really like it. They did really smart things. They didn't just rehash all the old villains and stuff, but they did bring back the Joker brilliantly in a animated film. So good.
Is it on DVD or?
It is on DVD, and I assume it's going to be on Blu-ray eventually because they popped the animated series onto Blu-ray this fall. So hopefully I'll see Batman Beyond on Blu-ray or digital next year or in 2 years, but we'll see. Hopefully it won't just be on DC Universe, that stupid streaming service that's coming out soon. But we should talk about how Brendan Fraser's on Doom Patrol. And I think that's I think that's brilliant casting. I love Brendan Fraser. The Mummy is an amazing movie. But
I want to see more Brendan Fraser. I agree.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to come back. Let's throw it out to our audience. What was your favorite incarnation of Batman? Or you know what? Tell us what you love about The Dark Knight. Why don't you send us an email at podcast@geekswithkids.ca, or you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekswithkidspodcast. Follow us on Twitter at geekswithkidscn. You could always listen to all of our podcasts on geekswithkids.libsyn.com. Or, you know what? Why don't you jump on Spotify? We're now streaming on that service, iTunes, Stitcher, and all your other favorite podcasting services. So thank you guys for coming on board, talking about the Bat.
Yeah,
and
it's fun.
I know this won't be our last time talking about Batman.
Oh, you kidding?
We got to talk about.
We got the Joker movie coming out next year. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, the Joaquin Phoenix. We'll talk about Joker in general. There, that'd be amazing. Then we can just talk about Mark Hamill and how he's the internet's favorite dad. Anyway, for Geeks with Kids, thanks for listening and have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
And then we stop.